Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's time for another Godhome Classroom video. And as promised in the last video, we're going to take a look at the final boss of the second Pantheon now, Paintmaster Sheo. Sheo is another boss that only exists in Godhome, and he's one of my favorite NPCs that you meet in the story. I think it's really fun to see him in action. Sadly, in action is actually quite a bit easier than Oro and Mato, although I still think that the fight is fun. As always, this video is going to focus on Sheo's attacks and then demonstrate a no-hit run of the fight. I'll be once again showing footage from my Twitch stream from the time that I beat Sheo on Radiant, but the strategy and tips that you'll see obviously work for all difficulties. As usual, this content is aimed at helping newer players who might be struggling to learn the boss's moves and movement. To begin, in the Pantheon or on Attuned difficulty, Sheo has 950 health. And on Ascended and Radiant difficulty, Sheo has 1450 health. Sheo, much like Oro and Mato, has a somewhat small move set. We'll take a look at it now. The first is the Paint Spear. Sheo's brush turns yellow in color, he holds it back like he's charging it up, and then pokes it forward, covering most of the floor. You realistically need to jump over this one, as you're unlikely to be far enough away to just avoid it. Thankfully, it's a really slow attack, and jumping is a good option. I mentioned this one first because realistically, you don't want to really be up in the air for any of the attacks to avoid them other than this one. This one you want to jump over because you pretty much have to, but the rest of them you want to stay on the ground, so I talked about this one first. Again, his brush turns yellow, so if you see yellow, just kind of get ready to jump up in the air. The next one we're going to talk about is his signature move, the Great Slash. Sheo's going to hold up his brush, he's going to flash white and charge up, and then slash forward. And when he does, the magenta colored paint is going to make a big splash, which then rains blobs of paint from the ceiling in random locations. It's fairly easy to dodge the attack and the blobs, but the tricky part is that Sheo tends to start charging up another attack while the blobs are falling down from the sky, so you really want to pay attention while you're dodging to what color you see on Sheo's brush next. The next two moves are fairly similar in that they just create a spray of paint blobs. The first one is the Paint Stomp. In this one, Sheo's going to crouch down and then jump up and wave the brush in front of him to create 6 blobs of red paint that spray out in a predictable pattern. This is fairly easy to dodge from the ground, which is why I mentioned you want to just be on the ground. But it's going to be a lot harder to dodge this in midair. This gets way worse if you're standing in a corner, so you definitely don't want to be standing in a corner for this one or the next attack. Again, that color is red. And then the last one is the Paint Splash. Sheo makes a little splash, slashing motion with his brush that makes 3 paint blobs that move forward in an arc. The pattern, much like the Paint Stomp, is very predictable. You can tell where they're going to be. It's always the same. But you can easily get caught in a corner and then have nowhere to move. So I tend to, for this one, just kind of jump up and through the middle and lower blob, but don't jump too high because you don't want to be, not able to jump for a paint spear or, accidentally jump into the blobs. Not always though. You can just sharp shadow or shade cloak through all of them. You can very easily do that with the way they're timed. So much like Oro and Mato, Sheo's going to do little rolls or hops to reposition before attacks, but these aren't particularly useful to know about unless you just get too close to him all the time. If you're getting close to him and not attacking, he could very easily just kind of roll backwards or jump to get away from you. But the more important thing I find is just kind of being ready to move and looking for the color of the paintbrush and positioning accordingly to get out of the way. One important thing to note is that Sheo will regularly stagger during the fight, giving you lots of opportunities to heal. However, you can realistically heal on pretty much every attack because it has a charge up animation that you'll see throughout the fight. And if you space yourself out and just kind of give yourself room, you can pretty much heal all the time. However, since we are doing this fight on Radiant, I won't be healing during the fight. I tend to use my opportunities during stagger to hit him with a Dream Nail. That way I can kind of generate some soul, and you'll see why in just a second. Now we're going to take a look at the charms that I brought for the fight. You might notice up at the top of the screen that we are overcharmed. Let's take a look and see what we brought. So I opted for an Overcharm build just because it is a Radiant fight on this one, and I'm using, in no particular order, Grubberfly's Elegy and Long Nail to keep up the pressure from distance. That allows for a lot of easy staggers. Quick Slash is there to make those staggers happen faster because it's based on how many hits you get. And then Unbreakable Strength is just there for more damage. So Soul Catcher is there to let us get more soul from actual nail hits, which do happen from time to time. I don't always use the Grubberfly blades. It should be noted that the Grubberfly beams do not generate soul, so that's why I use Dream Nail to get soul on staggers. That way you can get soul while you can to kind of work spells in. But the beams from Grubberfly's Elegy are the main focus of this build. Like I mentioned before, you could use Sharp Shadow and Shade Cloak to dash through the paint or dash through Sheo. You might want to include Dash Master because that allows you to dash further and more often, which allows you to potentially push further past Sheo, which is good because how big Sheo is, you don't want to like end your dash in the middle of Sheo. That would be bad. And then you could also, again, just like Oromato, you could use Quick Focus and Shape of Un to have room to move and get away during heals if you wanted to. But like I said, you can just heal in the right phases or the right times or during the staggers and do okay. You could also opt for a spell build and do Shaman Stone as well as Soul Catcher. I find it a little easier to just do it this way. But if you like spells, I mean, spells are really great. They obviously do a lot of good damage. You can get invincibility frames off of them. It is worth it to do that. So what we'll do next is we'll take a look at the fight. And I'll go ahead and edit this in. I think during the fight we were talking about like weird foods that we had eaten. Somebody was talking about haggis and I was talking about sea urchin, and so if you hear us talking about like weird food or see in the chat comments about like haggis, that's what we were talking about. This is kind of the joys of streaming, is you kind of get random stuff that pops up. Let's go ahead and take a look at this fight though. Makes sense. Makes sense. There it is. No hits. See, it just takes practice. You gotta get warmed up. There you go. So this, much like Oro and Mato, was one of the last fights that I did as far as like my journey towards having all Radiance done. I think that this is probably of the three, the first three Pantheons, this is one of the, probably the second easiest one. I feel like Sly is actually easier and definitely took me the least amount of time to get. But we'll take a look at that one in the next video. Yeah, let me know if that's fun for you. What do you like to bring against Sheo? We'll be doing Sly next, so keep an eye out for that. And have fun out there in Hallow Nest, okay?